Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. Of course, I'm James Slim Overton, and I'm here with co-host Leah Drake Stitt. And of course, the Colonel is not here yet, but hopefully he'll tune in before the show is over. And welcome, everybody. We were missing for about two shows. We took off Easter Monday and the Monday before that, and it looks like the Colonel is coming. So let me let him in. Hello, Colonel. How you doing?
All right, how you doing?
All right.
Okay.
I know that 5:30 thing, it sort of threw all of us off, but here we are.
Yeah, it threw me off. Renee, said that. I said, "Oh Lord, have mercy." Yeah, that's
But
all
that's
good.
okay. We all here with sunshiny faces, and
Mhm.
we'll
Yeah.
get started here. I had something I wanted to. And we have a special guest with us today, and her name is Tanya Liverman, and she is, excuse me.
That was you, I think. I think you made that noise.
Oh, okay. And she is a author, and I'm going to let her pronounce the name of the tribe. I was working on it, but if you've ever watched this show, I'm not the person if it's to. So pronounce the tribe for us, Miss Liverman.
Nanticoke Lanalanapi.
See, now I would have torn that up.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, she is here, and she's an author and of several books, and CEO of the Native Productions, and she's known in her native world as Spirited Dancer, and also she is a ordained minister. So we're going to talk about those mixes, and and she's Native American and African American, and we'll talk about her journey growing up, carrying those two ethnicities, and how she balanced that out. So welcome. Can we call you Tanya? Is it
Yes,
Tanya
thank
or
you.
Tanya?
It
You
is
prefer
Tanya.
Tanya? Okay. Welcome to our show, and thanks for agreeing to be here. And we're glad to have you. I don't think we ever had this kind of subject on, but and we met at the Printed Word bookstore where you were among other authors there reading to children. And once when I heard your story, I said, okay, yeah, that'd be something we need to bring on Portsmouth Coffee Talk and talk about. So tell us about. Well, let me mention the books that you have first: Journey to Legacy, Memoirs of an Educator, Reflections from the Soul, and In the Mirror, a Woman's Saga. And all of them are kind of related. Got a chance to go through a couple of them. Really interesting. And I like the way you told the story through poems.
Yes.
And that was very effective the way you did that because it keeps the reader, interested in what's going on. But you're actually telling a story in a poetic way. So go ahead. I'll let you, talk. You can start wherever you want to start. Coming up as a youth, as a young girl, or yeah, start there. Tell us your journey there.
Yes. Well, that's actually what brought Journey to Legacy, the first book that I put out. As I compiled poetry as a young child, I actually kept it. And my first poem was written when I was in third grade, and then I enhanced it. And by seventh grade, I had owned it. But growing up was very interesting as I relate to the book Reflections from the Soul, because that actually allowed people to see that you can be American Indian or Native American as well as being Christian. Growing up, people usually would just look at me and assume that I was mixed. Or they would say I was Puerto Rican. Most people thought that I was Spanish. Um, when they met my mom, they would look at her and she's even more pale skinned. So they would say, "Oh, your mom's white and your dad's black." And I'm like, "No." And so when I would say that, she was Indian, They're like, oh no, no, Indians don't exist. There's no real Indians. So it was like a battle trying to prove my identity, even as a young girl. But also as a child wanting to be accepted, it was hard to understand my true identity as well as a young child. I knew what my dad looked like. I knew what my mom looked like. I knew what I experienced growing up with my mom and my grandmom and going to the powwows. So it wasn't until, of course, later that I, truly understood all of that together. Um, and it's marvelous being able to be a part of both worlds. Being with my mom, I mostly embrace my culture with her and understand that side of my family a lot more. However, um, my dad just as much a part of my life as well, and there's some interesting ancestry there too with um, African, Cherokee, and Irish, which
Mhm.
Mm.
my maiden name is actually straight Irish. No,
Uh-huh.
I get the red tones from. Um, but yes, Hazard is my maiden name, and so we looked that up, and there's a whole lot of legacy there as well. So I'm part of that Hazard family clan, coming from that Cherokee area as well, and then of course the Pierce Mosley bloodline through my mother, and that is where I am, Nanticoke Island Api.
Wonderful.
So what was I mean, growing up as a young child in school, where people made the assumptions of who your parents were and who you were, they knew you were different. So where did it mostly come from? Did it come from all children, or was it mostly white, or was it black? And I'm sure I don't know if it was many Native Americans in your school when you were growing up. Uh,
I don't
so
think
where did it mostly come from?
I would say it came a little bit of both. I never thought that I quite fit in because I had friends who were white and friends who were black, but I didn't know anyone who was like me. There was one girl that I was friends with who was of mixed race, but she would say my mom is white and my dad is black. And people thought the same for me, and we used to, hang out. However, I knew who I was, but it was hard for people even back then to embrace that. And if looking at just the color of skin, my parents probably had a hard time being a couple back then as well, because anything that looked black and white is what people assumed, which
Mhm.
is what many tribes, including mine, have tried to go back and debunk and erase some of that history where we were looked at and then determined this is what you are, instead of being asked what our ethnicity really is. And so I get that today. People will assume something completely different just by looking at me. And the last thing they would even think or say is Native American.
Yes, yes.
And, I am a citizen of my tribe. I am I carry my card proudly. It's who I am. So it's not just, I think I am, a lot of people say, I think I'm Native American. It's somewhere in my bloodline, but no, I know who I am.
Yeah, and I have two questions. Well, one is a statement for the other two get in. As far as you talked about people mistake you for other races and things like that. And well, if you tell them you're Native American, then they have a perceived notion of what Native Americans look like.
Yeah.
And we come in, I mean, well, you all come in all different looks as well. But growing up watching the old cowboy shows, it was just one look that we had,
Hmm.
that we were exposed to as far as what Indians would look like, regardless of what tribe they were from. So
Yeah.
I think that was probably embedded in a lot of their minds back then. They didn't expect, and because I think some Mexicans are mistaken for some
Yes.
tribes of England, Indians in certain areas. So, you
Yeah.
know, and but that just goes to show you, it's all types of looks and of the Indian tribe. So,
Absolutely. And, in my tribe alone, we have different shades, complexions, eye colors from like green, blue, brown. So, and we're all family. So it's interesting to see people accept one look and
Exactly.
not embrace all of
Hmm.
them.
The
You know,
John Wayne movies with the Italians playing. It was always the Italians playing Indians, but that's in the past. So people hopefully are more educated.
Tanya, um, a lot of African Americans, coming up, they would say, "Oh, I have Indian blood.
mhm.
I have Indian blood." And for the longest time, I know my grandmother told me that we had some Indian blood, but when I did my DNA, of course, it did not show at all. So, what was your experience growing up as a Native American child? What was your experience like? How did you embrace your culture as a child? How did you get others to come in to embrace your culture as a child?
So my fondest memories as a child always go back to our gatherings, our powwows. Um, just it's one of my favorite memories, and I still have some artifacts from like my first powwow that I
Mhm.
wear every now and then, and memories of my chief at the time being just so down to earth and so loving, and the family around me knowing that, wow, this is all my family. And I must say, even though I grew up with my family, I still had to file the paperwork to prove my
Mm.
lineage through my
Mhm.
mother's bloodline.
Mhm.
And we traced, I want to say, 8 or 9 generations back, including my children's, from my children through me, through my mother, all the way back. I think it was like 9 generations. Um, and that was documented. And
Yes.
so it was very easy. Records were kept, and there's no denying it, no doubt. So growing up, it was again just having those memories, understanding it. But the part about being liked as a kid and accepted was difficult because it almost kind of brainwashed me into saying, well, maybe I am something different, And that's what I love about the book I read, because
Yes.
the book I wrote, because people through judgment kind of conditioned me to think or doubt who I was for a while. And then I realized no, because I remembered all those memories. I remembered
Mhm.
everything that I experienced. And I was like, no, this is who I am. And I had to kind of fight myself
Yes.
back. Say
Yes. Yes.
no. I remember the times at the powwows. I remember the dancing. I remember the food. I could smell the aromas.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I embraced and realized, like, this is who I am.
But like I said, it wasn't in my bloodline, but
Yeah.
I was blessed a few years back, maybe 10 years back, that I was adopted by the Lakotas in South Dakota and a part of the High Horse clan. They adopted me into their clan. I don't have a card, but I have attended many powwows and many Sundance as well.
Oh,
I've attended those, and I participated in many cultural activities with the Lakotas in South Dakota. So, and it has been a blessing for me to have. Let me stop my dog. I know you can hear her, but she does this every time we come on air. But
Yeah.
anyway, but I've had the blessings of being a part of them, although not by bloodline. And it's such a special feeling to be with them and to share information with them, especially in the loss of their language, the loss of their culture,
mhm,
due to the Indian boarding schools, and how they're trying to reclaim those things now by bringing cultural classes back to the reservations, where
mhm.
they're bringing the language back to the young people and trying
Absolutely.
to keep that history alive because you can't lose that history.
No,
What are
no.
you all doing to maintain your history?
Within our culture, and within our tribe, we do have cultural retention. We do have classes that start from very young age, where they are teaching the different things that we do, um, from the simplest things like beading to buckskin to basket weaving, um, the different phases of life, the things
Mhm.
that you experience, um, and the etiquette. There's powwow etiquette, there's
Yes,
dance etiquette,
yes.
so that has to be taught, and so it's very important with having cultural retention to have the legacy continue. In order to do that, it has to start at the younger ages, because face it, um, you know, the chief that I grew up with, he is now no longer the chief. We have a new chief, and he's the cousin that I used to run around with and grew up with, you know.
Okay.
And so it's the new generation that is going to have to sustain and maintain and continue that legacy even through the next bloodline. And so it's awesome to see that as I've grown up, and you know, now I'm an older woman now. And so to see what has happened and transpired over the years, again, like my biggest memories are reflections from being around my family. And so my children have been raised away from that area because I moved to Virginia. And so they don't have the experiences as often as I did to be around my family. Once a year, twice a year, you know, we can get to the powwows and stay active with that. And I asked them, you know, recently, you know, when are you going to get in the circle? You know, there's nothing like being in the circle for
It's
me.
nothing like being in the circle.
It's not like it. I mean, there's a saying that says Indians do everything in a circle. So there's nothing like it. I love it and I long for it. And, you know, each year that I missed, like after, like when COVID began,
Yes,
that was difficult, you know. And so I'm excited every time to be around my family. To me, it's like a family reunion. To be able to just go around them and just see everyone growing up and seeing how our legacy continues, because we are still here. You know, that's the biggest fight. We are still here. We exist. As little percentage in the US that we are, Native Americans are real and we are here.
And
And Tanya, you mentioned about your children. You mentioned about your children and trying to get them into the circle. You know, in your book, you mentioned how you were a little hesitant about going into the circle yourself, or at least going in there with the regalia. And you would go in there. You would have to wait until they invited anybody to come in the circle. But at certain points, you had to have on that Indian gear in order to be in that circle. So do you see a hesitancy in them like you had when you were coming up?
I do. I think it's because they want to be correct and represent correctly. I know that I had some anxieties about making sure I had, you know, everything that I needed. You know, as a traditional woman dancer, I wanted to make sure that I had everything I needed to be able to complete my regalia and go into the circle appropriately. I wanted to make sure that I had all my dance steps correctly, and you know, when to. It's just so many different things, and you know, to really understand, because again, experiencing it and doing it are two different things. And so, once the first time that I went into the circle, it was like, why did I wait so long? Like, oh my goodness. So I love it, but I can't, you know, force anyone to do it. But my daughter has been in the circle and she has enjoyed it. And I told her, you know, it's time for you to get back in there. You know, I want to see this continue. And, you know, I have a grandchild and I want my grandchild to have that experience in the circle. He has not yet, being that we live here in Virginia, but he's excited and wants to go. So I can't wait for his first time to go in the circle.
But have you attended any of their local powwows?
I have.
Here. And do they invite you into the circle when you go there?
Yes. I just recently went to one this summer. Well, I went to two, but one specifically I was going to participate in, but it was so hot. That I chose not to. I was in full buckskin. And I chose to stay a little cool that day. But they do invite you. There's a registration table for all Native Americans who come into the powwow who would like to get in the circle and dance. You can get a number if you want to do a competition dance. And so I did go through that process. I actually registered, got in, got my number and everything like that. And then, like I said, eventually, I think I did a couple intertribal, but I did not do the traditional women's dance at that point. It had gotten a little later and it was hot. So, but I did get in the circle.
Well, that's great. That's great. Colonel?
Yes, Tanya, thanks for coming on. And I'll make a couple comments here first. And knowing that the Native Indian population is our first Americans, you know, for our country. And I look at what the other side, the GOP, is looked at trying to take the rights away from Native Indians, the right to vote, especially in the states of Arizona, North Dakota, and South Dakota. What they did in the last 3 elections, you know how you go into an apartment building and you'll have the multi mailboxes there.
Mm-hmm.
What we have in any apartment buildings. They said that in those states, the Native Indians can't have those. You have to have an individual mailbox. And some were living out in, far out in the middle of nowhere, but they came into town and where their regular mailbox was, and they made it illegal for them. Basically, took their right to vote away. So I just want to make that comment that the right is taking your vote away from Native Americans. So, but as a Native American, I see the discussion coming to you sooner than later because of people of color and this issues of the DEI issue and affirmative action, and because you're still part of the others, a subgroup of the others, and they're coming after you sooner or later. And so with that, we also had in the years past, we had set aside for scholarships, for universities and colleges and stuff like that. All that stuff is being wiped away. Have you talked to any of your colleagues or family members and seen how that is affecting y'all, or is it just too new?
No, I have not had that conversation. It's interesting because I've had conversations where people think, that all Native Americans get a check, all Native Americans go to college for free, but that's not true. There are opportunities, just like there is for anyone else. There's benefits that are able to be applied for, but that's for low income, but that's like for anybody else. So I know that I have been asked personally, there's the Hampton University, right? And someone said, oh, you can go to Hampton University free because you're Indian. I was like, no one's told me that. And I don't think that I've researched and I've not found that to be true.
Uh-huh.
But most people think because especially because they've seen my card, or they'll say, oh, well, you can go to school free. You can get free benefits. But I can tell you that that's not true. There's also a difference between being state recognized and being federally recognized, and living on a reservation and not living on a reservation.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, a lot of the reservations who have casinos, that money doesn't really go to them.
Exactly.
Right.
Scholarships can come from it, but it doesn't always benefit. I can tell you it doesn't benefit 100% of the tribe. So we are a non-gaming tribe. Our tribe is a non-gaming tribe. And so I don't know if you looked this up, but 6 years ago, we went into litigation and we sued the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey and sued the state of New Jersey, and we won. And it's because the crew that came with the governor previously had said there's no Indians in the state of New Jersey. And that basically took away all of the funding, everything that we had as far as the right to sell and say authenticity is because of who we are, right? It took that right away for us to sell our goods. And there is an act about that. And it basically was saying if you're not Native, then you can't sell it and say that it's Native made. It also took away programs for diabetes and different things like that, grants, funding, all of that. But once we won, of course, we received all that back, and retroactively, because since 1982, I want to say, is when we were founded as a full operating, thriving tribe. And so it not only helped our tribe, but it helped every tribe in that state. So it's interesting that it was a political matter because it had to do with whether money was going to be taken away if these tribes were going to start setting up casinos or not. That was not so.
And that's big money. And the tribal casinos is big money. And it's shameful that the what I call the little guy does not benefit from that.
No, we don't. No.
Yes, it does. And it's but that's the way things are. And something needs to be changed. But
Yeah, my question would be if Native Americans benefited from the casinos, then why are the reservations still poor?
Exactly.
Why is there still
Exactly.
alcoholism and diabetes and drug
Mhm.
and abuse, and like why aren't they thriving better?
well,
You know?
in the federal government spends tens of millions of dollars on what we call the Indian healthcare system, where they set up, and we have doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, and everybody, a whole healthcare system, even though it's underfunded and not the best quality of folks is out there working with it. But you mentioned the Indian population has higher numbers for alcoholism, education is down, all the negative numbers that you see across this nation, especially if you see those same numbers. It's even worse than the folks down in the South, in Alabama, Arkansas, which has some of the worst schools in Mississippi. And on the reservations, it's even worse, even though we're trying to pour money into it. And so, what would you see if you were a queen for a day? How would you attack those kind of problems?
I don't know how to go about it, but if I was queen for a day, I'd make sure that 100% of the revenues of the casinos would go to the tribe, so that the people would be able to have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
It's misleading when people see reservations and see tribes with casinos or casinos in tribal names. It's misleading because people think that the money is going directly to them, but it's not. And I just wish that there was a better way to represent that, and a better way for more aid, more money, more funding, and grants to truly go to American Indians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Tanya, let's dispel this rumor, because it's your tribe who supposedly sold Manhattan for some trinkets and some beads. And that legend needs to be dispelled, because a lot of kids are told that the Native Americans sold the Manhattan Island for just trinkets and beads. What do you say about that?
I did not hear that. I've never heard that.
Really?
I've never heard
we've heard, yeah, it has gone for quite some time, and the legend was that it was sold just for trinkets and beads, but we know that not to be true.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Check it out. Look it up, okay?
I will. I
Look
definitely
it
will.
up. Yes.
her particular tribe, Leah.
Yeah, the it's a Lenape. Is that what you say? How you say it?
So the
So there's
Lenape,
different fashions of.
Yeah.
yes, there
Yeah,
are different branches.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we, as the Nanticoke Lenape, we assimilated with, we migrated with the Nanticokes from the Delawares.
From the
And
Delawares.
that's the Delawares. And then Lenape literally means men of men, which translates to original people. That's who our lineage is from.
Okay.
And yes, we were in the New Jersey, the New York,
Yes.
Pennsylvania area. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never heard that story. I've heard
Check
many.
it out. And plus there are two different dialects that are within your tribal group, are there not?
Well, it's Lenape. It's a dialect. It comes from Algonquin.
Algonquin. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's say a little bit about your books, because they are truly interesting and inspirational.
Thank
I
you.
especially like In the Mirror, a woman's saga. Could you just say a little bit about that, please?
Yes.
And wait a minute, before you say that, more young women need to read that book, okay? Young and old, okay?
And men.
And
And
men,
men.
they need to read that. They need to read that one. So Tanya, tell us a little bit about In the Mirror.
Like many women, I've gone through a lot of different things, trauma, and yet I am a very positive, optimistic person, and I have definitely helped a lot of women through, pastoral counseling and things like that. And it got to the point where I was coming across young girls that I worked with in education, as well as young ladies that I dealt with, and their response to their situation, similar to mine, was not the same as my response. So I felt compelled, and I was very empathetic to encourage, inspire, assist. And that's where the book basically came from. I watched and assisted girls within girls groups who were like sexually abused and were suicidal and literally sharing my story with them was that aha moment where they weren't alone, and that people can actually do better in life and live a better life past their hurts and pain. And so that's where that book actually derived from, was, you know, being able to assist other people through sharing my testimony. And I felt like putting my testimony out globally would help more people than the ones that I was able to come in contact with.
Very well written as well.
Thank
Very
you.
well written.
Thank
So we
you.
need to really get to promote that. Well, I
Did you
keep saying
listen to
young
the
ladies
CD?
and ladies, but men too, James. Okay.
Yeah.
Hear the CD that comes with it. There's
How did I
actually
miss
a
that?
CD. Yep, there's a CD that comes with it.
I guess
And
because I was reading online.
yep, you can purchase the CD because each of the poems at the end of each chapter has a spoken word track with my voice. And the music was composed by Winston Bird, Chris Robb, Calvin Austin. They put together so many beautiful tracks that you'll hear like a lot of jazz tone. It was just an amazing, exciting experience to be able to see how Winston and the guys in LA, they're in LA. And all I did was send my spoken word to them, and they composed all the music and sent it back, and they nailed it. And I did all my recordings in Austin Touch Productions with Calvin Austin Studio, and we literally compiled it together to create that CD. And when you listen to it, it's very upbeat. It's got the jazz mode, but you know, it's me being able to share how I wanted you to hear that poetry.
I think I saw one of them on your YouTube page. It had a video attached to it, and
I created the video.
you were the spoken word person, and you know, and it was very entertaining. But I want to go to this right here because I mentioned that your native name is Spirited Dancer.
Yes.
And then, and of course, when you were talking about the circle or the powwows that you have, you know, that's the dance ritual is a big part of that. And on the other hand, you're a praise dancer.
Yes.
So, you know, talk about, you know, how that mixes, because I think you mentioned in one of your books also that people didn't understand. Now, how can you praise God
and be Indian as well?
Praise what the natives do? Don't they worship spirits and things like that? So explain how that mix is and some of the misconceptions people might have.
Yeah. Well, no, Native Americans only worship the Great Spirit, one creator, right? One creator. And I only worship the creator. You know, I worship God, you know, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, right? And so being able to embrace my culture, and there are certain practices that I would probably not do, but in its entirety, it's who I am, and that will never change. It's always who I'm going to be. But just as early on, when religion was introduced to our tribe, which became part of the way we preserved our tribe, actually, I've embraced Christianity as my faith, and the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is my Redeemer. And so the way that I can be free in the circle, knowing I'm giving tribute to Him, is the same way that I can dance in church and choreograph to amazing music that can speak my heart. And when I'm selective, I'm literally selective on how the music speaks to me. And when I dance, my name means when I become one with the creator when I dance. That's how I was named, Spirited Dancer, or Manetu Kekenkas. I become one with the creator when I dance. And so that's how I see myself when I am praise dancing. And I want to interpret what I see through my movements. And it's just like dancing in the circle where you know the beats and you feel the beats and you're able to demonstrate your expressions and everything through that. And so to me, it's harmonious and similar. Just two different types of music. That's it for me.
For the same purpose.
For the same purpose. Absolutely.
That's it.
And I can say that. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, Leah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, James.
No, I was going to say, I was going to mention the Colonel. Colonel, you heard the stories about our grandmother
Yes.
was married to African American with Indian blood, and we never met him because he passed away before we were born. But you've seen that picture, right?
Yes.
Real dark skin with the, it wasn't that dyed, fried, and laid to the side processed hair.
Yeah.
It was it came out of his skull like that, and it was real slick and high cheekbones. And I can remember seeing that picture and then looking at my mother and seeing the facial features of some tribes are known for the high cheekbones. And I think all of our aunts had that. You agree, Colonel?
Yes. But I do have one follow-up though.
Go ahead.
For the question that Leah had, comment on the selling of Manhattan. Yes, it was for $24, equivalent of $24 of beads and trinkets back in the day. That's what they sold it for, and it'd be worth that same trinkets would be worth $1,000 today, adjusted for inflation. So yes, it is true. And actually, I'd read that in a history book or somewhere.
Yeah, we did. We got it in elementary school.
Oh yeah, we heard that long time ago.
That's for
and
sure.
it was kind of unfair, because that's what we grew up with, and it made that story made the Indians look like, what's wrong with y'all, and it probably was a lot more to that story.
I was going to say, because I am a former educator, and that's where Memoirs of an Educator came about when I wrote that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed
we put the heart and the love back in education through care.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did was go into history classes and debunk some of the stuff that the books were saying.
Yes, indeed.
And I would bring my work, and I would bring my regalia, and I would talk. And some things I would go along with the SOLs, and some things I would say,
that's right.
So I enjoyed it when I was in the classrooms, because I literally debunked some of the stuff that was being taught. And I would say, close your books. This is what really happened.
Exactly.
So not everything that's in writing is true.
And that's one of the reasons why they have restarted the schools for the children in South Dakota, to help them to understand the truth versus the myths about them as a people, and the reclaiming of the language, the reclaiming of the culture, and all of those things, because the children had lost it. And especially when they used those boarding schools. Those boarding schools stripped the Native American children of everything. It was like slavery.
It was worse than slavery, because African Americans could vote in the 19th century. Native Americans weren't citizens in the 19th century.
Right. Okay.
So we weren't even like people until the 20th century. And 1924, Calvin Coolidge. It's sad that through genocide, and we talked about this at the bookstore, through genocide, the Native American population completely diminished. And that's why the population is so small. And, trying to kill off the people who own the land is much harder. They were trying to take possession of the land, but, they fought to death, and so there wasn't as much in slavery as those that ended up in genocide. It's sad, because when you look at history, how does that make sense that people who originated weren't citizens until the 20th century?
Exactly.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then you bring people from out of their country to the country, make them citizens, give them voting rights in the 19th century. But you enslaved them.
Yes.
Right. None of history makes sense.
None.
And that genocide started from the beginning, because I saw a video with one of the counselors. He's the counselor of the tribe and a president, or he holds a really high office, and he was saying that when the Americans came, for every one English person that got off the ship, 10 Native Americans died. That was a conscious effort in order for them to, just wipe out and replace the Native Americans with themselves.
Yeah.
And you mentioned at the bookstore too, it's probably a conscious effort now of your tribe and many other tribes to try to make sure that that small percentage of you all don't just go away completely. You want to make a conscious effort of sort of making sure that bloodline continues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's all about preserving our history, and that's what a large segment of our society now wants to wipe out history or whitewash it. And so we have to tell the kids and the next generation that this is what I'm telling you is the truth, and is not written in a textbook. Because one, you see it with the book banning, and if it's not with what they want, then that book is banned, especially if it has is written or has any mention of the others, and the other being anybody of color that is not predominantly European, Anglo-Saxon blood, and as Mr. Trump says, pure blood American.
Which he's not.
There's no
Anyway,
pure blood American.
Yeah.
No
which he's
pure
not.
blood American.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Fake news.
Fake news.
People
fake
can
news.
write anything. You know, Trump's even trying to, I think I heard he wrote a Bible. But
Yeah.
after
Mixing,
Two
religion.
Corinthians. 2 Corinthians.
Yeah.
He loves to read 2 Corinthians.
Yeah. But
you can't erase history. I mean,
no.
And that's why
over to say this is the way it was by erasing history. I mean, that is so wrong.
And that's why it's incumbent upon each of us to teach our children their history. Because history is really his story. He's telling his story because they took pieces of history and took out the parts that would be negative towards who they were. They took that out and kept certain portions in. So it's incumbent upon each of us to teach our children their history, make them aware of who paved the way for them to be here today and the price that was paid for them to be here today.
Yeah, and it's also good.
I was going to say, the Colonel said something earlier, how Italians were portrayed, Native Americans. And that whole portrayal leading up to even today, what modern people perceive Native Americans as. This past year, well, every year I try to do it, but this past year I was in a classroom, 3rd and 5th graders, fourth graders. And I was in full regalia and I was teaching and I was talking about some of the things and the questions that the children ask, you can tell it's based on watching TV.
Exactly.
And they had no clue. Now, I've been at this place since August, and they didn't know until the day I presented that I was Native American. That's because I came in that day and I sat at my desk as normal, but then later went in, had all of my regalia on, had the music, talked, and it was like, wow. And ever since, like, every student still says hi, but it's a different hi. It's
yes.
Hi, Mrs. Liverman. They were educated that day. They were educated.
Yeah, and Leo said it's good for us to learn our history and other cultures' history as well, to know that some other people had similar experiences that we had, in some cases worse. Just like I said, we had it bad. African Americans had it bad coming up, but time went on, and still, like it is. But at a time when we were, considered half a person, you all won't even consider that. So, to know that history.
And it's amazing what they do, because when you go into South Dakota, the Black Hills, they didn't want the Black Hills because they thought Black Hills was just horrible, horrible land. But now they're finding out the great minerals, the great resources on the Black Hills. So now, of course, they want, they would like to have that land back where they have the reservation. But the reservation living conditions are so poor. And outside of the reservation, of course, they have the liquor stores and anything that would defile the life of those Native Americans who live there, and when you look back, you say, how could they treat individuals like this? These are the true Americans. How could they come out and treat them the way in which they're treated?
Yeah. It saddens me.
Yeah. And Tanya, you wear a lot of different hats, and before we run out of time, I want you to talk a little bit about Native Productions, and that's something that you do as well, and it gives you the opportunity to work with a lot of prominent people in the music world and film world as well. So, talk a little bit about that and how that's a part of your life as well.
Yes. Native Productions does give me the opportunity to work in the entertainment industry. Everything that is produced comes from God first, so Native Productions. And my emblem is actually the logo of my company shows the music and the book publishing side. I love to work with many different authors. I've published authors who are educators, who are comedians, who are famous. It's been an amazing ride watching some of the stories. There's a woman who has deceased now, and I called her Mama Winnie. But there's a book that she did, and she was an ambassador from Liberia who was married to the president of education.
I
And
go
this
there
was
all the time, Tanya. Tanya, I go there all the time.
this was the book that I got
Yes,
to publish.
yes, yes,
And Miss Winifred Massaquoi was her name.
yes.
And I loved working with her. This was an opportunity where I got to travel to DC and actually meet her on several occasions and sit there like having coffee talk and record everything and sit there with her memoirs and her stories. And I was given a binder full of all the notes and invitations from the Queen of England. And it was just so historical. I've worked with her. I've worked with interviewing for Gospel Central Radio. I was one of the radio personalities, and it gave me a plethora of opportunities to meet so many recording artists. I've worked the red carpet with Gospel Central, as well as the Jay Williams show on the red carpet for the Stella Awards. There, I got to meet and network with many different people, not just recording artists, but networking with some of the colleagues in radio. It grew me a lot. Took me out of my comfort zone. I'm really not that outward with people, but it definitely has taught me how to be expressive and how to go after what I really like. And it's learning. And so how else do you learn but ask questions? So I became a really great interviewer. And now I also manage recording artists. I've been doing that for several years. I'm working with Jay Windsor, who is a phenomenal gospel recording artist. He used to be the lead background vocalist for Byron Cage, traveled with him for years. We're working on his new album, and he'll be releasing his single coming soon in June. And so I just got an opportunity last weekend to go into the studio and direct that actual recording session with the background singers. And I've also worked with Grammy Award winning artist Juanita Wynn, and she did an amazing stage play, this thing called Life. And I'll tell you, if we could do that again, I would just love to do that again. It was that stage play saved souls. It healed. It brought so much transformation. Speaking of, I worked with Euclid Gray with the transformation of who I am. I helped with that direction of the stage play. We brought that over to the Ferguson Center years ago, and that was powerful as well. And he taught about his life. He used to sing with R. Kelly back in the day as one of the original background singers for R. Kelly. Yeah. Then he went on to be Tyler Perry's stage play, Reverend Henry Oliver. He was in that stage play of Meet the Browns. And then he went on and changed his life. And he gave up all that and went completely gospel and started recording gospel music. And I met him one day in Atlanta. And then from there, we became friends, him and my husband. And we brought him to bring his play here. And it ministered to so many people. So Native Productions does things like that and works with people's dreams. Our slogan is where dreams come true and legacies are revealed. A lot of people don't know what they're holding on to, and that it's a life of legacy, living it now that they can share with other people. And so that's what I love to do with Native Productions, is take your dream and your vision and make it come true.
Okay, and you're based in Newport News, and the church is in Hampton, and so you kind of rule over there in the peninsula side. So have you seen a lot of, I noticed a lot of great talent here in the Hampton Roads area. How often you get a chance to work with them or cultivate them or, help them get started?
Yes, I've worked with a lot of talent here in Hampton Roads. Jay Windsor happens to be my only artist that is not Hampton Roads. we worked together for years ago. He became a pastor, and then we just signed another contract again. So I didn't think I could do a long distance thing, but it works out amazingly well. But I worked more as I started in the beginning with just Hampton Roads. And so some of those singers are now, worship leaders, going about their business. One of them is actually one of my first artists. She's now working with me and Jay Windsor. So y'all keep an eye out for Mara Suggs. She's going to be amazing. I can just
Okay.
So I'm excited. I'm excited working in the music industry again. It's something that has pulled on me for a while, and Native Productions actually signed off in 2021. And through many word of mouths and referrals and calls, can you publish my book? Can you consult me on this? I'm coming out with a track. Can you help me? Because I do administer a lot of music and register and try to get the royalties to the artists so that they understand. My mentor, Mr. Henry Harris, is phenomenal. And he taught me almost everything I know in the music industry. And I've worked with him. We've taught sessions on music business. And so I want to make sure that artists understand that. But also, if you're going to put music out, get paid. A lot of people say, well, I just want to minister. Yeah, but you put money in an investment. Don't you want a return on that? So I teach them and show them, and I'll do the work, but I show them what I'm doing so they understand that there's a way to actually get residual money after you release your music. And so it's just a great opportunity to help other people in that.
Oh, that's so great. So we're coming to the end, coming to the end of our show, but we really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can have you back from time to time to keep the discussion about the Native American plot in the discussion, so people will be aware, and all those mistruths that you had to deal with in your classroom can be answered. I think still people are not as aware of the different types of tribes that are around. They just put everybody in the same boat. So
yeah, they do.
It'd be worth talking about. But any last comments from hosts at this time?
Well, I know that my experience in South Dakota each summer really it was enriching. I could not explain how enriching it has been to be with the High Horse family. And everyone here is trying to give their native name. Well, the name that the High Horse gave me was Kayamakachiwi, Earth Turtle Woman. So I love it. And I told him when they gave me the name, I said, Brian, how do you know I love turtles? I have live turtles at home. He said, I didn't know that. He said, but I felt it in my spirit. So I received it, and I claim it, and I hold dear to it. And I still am with them. Don't visit them as often as I need to. So this has been really enriching for me to hear you speak about your native tribe and how you have embraced your culture and how you're trying to pass that on to your children. So I am very much impressed, Tanya. An hour is not enough time to have you on because you're doing so many amazing things. And we do have to get you back to talk some more about those other amazing things that you're doing. So once again, I say thank you so very much for coming on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And for those of you who missed the beginning, go to our YouTube page. It will be on YouTube forever. You can hear from Tanya Liverman forever on Portsmouth Coffee Talk's YouTube page. So thank you so very much, Tanya. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And in Lenape, Wanishi.
Wanishi.
And I'll echo what Leah said. And thank you for coming on. Learned so much in this 1 hour time, and it's just not enough time. And it also opened up a lot of other questions that we have, or at least I have. And so, but in the interim period, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And Leah, that's a good name, the turtle pod, because I've seen you rescue a turtle from the street.
I rescue turtles
to keep them getting run over.
I rescue my turtles.
I guess they knew you. They knew your heart.
But amazingly enough, when I was going to Bear Brook to where the spirited mountain where they go to pray, as I was going to Bear Brook, who was coming but a turtle crossing the street? I said, this acknowledges the fact that you've given me the right name. Okay.
Yep. So don't get mad at me if I call you that in public.
Hey, it's okay. It's all
okay,
right.
All right. Just want to be sure.
And when I think, Tanya, I've spent a lot of time in Liberia too, so I really need to talk to you further as
Yeah.
well. Okay.
What I have still from that experience,
I need to see it. I need to feel it.
we need to get together
We
so
need
that
to
you
get
can
together.
experience
We do.
that.
We do. Okay.
Okay.
And then share it with us, please.
And we'll share it with you. And then Tanya and I will both
Well,
come
what
back.
you can share with us.
We'll come back
Yeah.
on Portsmouth Coffee Talk and share it with you and you, James, and the Colonel. How about that?
Okay.
Good.
All right. And thanks a lot. And welcome back, Colonel.
Yeah.
And thanks again. Thanks to everybody. And make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share on Facebook and, of course, on our YouTube channel. And thanks again. And we'll see you next week. We appreciate you. Take care and have a great
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so
weekend.
very much.
Bye bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Colonel. Slim.